Alright, welcome to another video. In this video, we're going to go over the Unity editor and where everything is. So starting right off, I'll just cover on the left side, I have updated in the downloadable folder this hierarchy. This game music persistent needs to be root in the scene. In other words, it needs, I don't know why I couldn't say root. It needs to be root in the scene, meaning it needs to not be nested within another folder. So when you can down click an arrow like this, it means that these are nested inside the main assets folder or object. This needs to be on top, so it should only be underneath testing scene. Now, everything else below, I'll explain when I get to the hierarchy, but just know that this game music persistent needs to stay on top unless I change the code in the future, and if I do, then I'll let you know in another video. So to cover the Unity editor as a whole and where everything is, we'll just jump right in and start at the top. File contains our save and save project. This is how you save when you are finishing up or backing it up, saving your work, whatever, anything like that. You'll hit File Save and File Save Project. Now also in the File menu, there is Build Settings. This is important because once we start doing level transitions, I can't even talk, level transitions, you'll be able to add your levels here, otherwise it won't be able to transition between the levels. Also, this build settings is for building exe files, so if I wanted to build exe files, I could choose one of these two options, like Universal or Windows. And you can build to other things like Android and iOS as well. I have it set up for WebGL because the purpose of this template is for game jams and basically creating games to share like with other game devs. So you want to make sure you're in the right build. In my case, I want it to be WebGL so people can easily submit their games to game jams. Now to move on from build settings, we have our edit menu. In the edit menu, we have a few important things. We have duplicate. Control D is the hotkey right here. Anytime you're wondering a hotkey, it's on the right of your menus. If there's nothing on the right, there is no hotkey. Now below that, we have our duplicate, and we also have undo. So undo, Control Z, that's in here as well. So you'll make sure you want to know how to do that. Control Y to redo in case you undo and then want to redo it back. And then below all this, we have project settings, and that'll pop up right here. If you don't have it docked like I do, which you might not, you can just drag it out. I drag it off screen so I can show you. But basically, you can drag it out, and it might pop up for you like this. And in here, this is where you can set up important things within your project, like your graphics, targeting what tier of graphics. So you can see we have low, medium, high, and you basically can target different levels of PCs and allow for lower end computers and higher end computers to have different looks based on what components they might have. You also have your input manager. This is where essentially when you have a controller or a keyboard, it'll trigger something within here if you set it up properly. So the mouse is right here. It's set up to be a mouse, but if you go to horizontal, you'll notice that right here we've got A and D. That would be left and right, so it corresponds to the left and right arrows. This is our keyboard movement, and it fires this text right here. And when this text is, it's not like text on screen, but it's like a message. It fires this, and when this happens, essentially the code listens for this, and it tells our player to move. You also have your player, not like your character player, but your player as in like the player that the game is within. And you can change the settings in here to alter how the player looks or is used. We also have quality. Quality is related to like lighting and shadows and things within our world, so you want to pay attention to that as well. There's a whole lot in here. Generally speaking, when you go in here, you kind of want to look things up and make sure your if I could talk again. And when you go in here, you want to look things up and make sure you're like setting things properly and optimizing where you can so you make the experience on the player better. And you could also solve problems like visually in here. Now, outside of the project settings, we have assets, game objects, and components. Assets is used for like passing packages of things back and forth with people if you're working together. Generate lighting, that's for if you're using bake lighting, if you're not using real-time lighting, and that's good for like optimizing the game and render times. Creating an object, I don't do it through this menu, but you can. I do it out here. I just right-click and create objects in this hierarchy. Now the component, you can do the same thing, but you can also right click out here and you notice effects, which is under a component normally, is also able to be selected out here. Services, this is for apps and things that you download from the Unity store. Then we got our Windows tab. If you lose a window or close a window, you can find it in here. General window is like the common windows that you start with. A important tab in here is the rendering tab, and you go to lighting. Now in here, the rendering and lighting tab, if we click environment, this is where we can change the look of our world a little bit. So we have our fog. If we turn the fog off and on, you'll see it kind of turns off out there, right? Now you can also change like the density of the fog, like how much is there. But I'm not going to change anything because I have it set up the way I like it for this scene, but you can change that right there. You can also change the sky, as you see up here, by selecting the matte right here, or the material for the sky. And it'll pop up the folder down here for our sky. And then we can select that sky material right here. Just in case you didn't see what I was doing, I was selecting right here in the folders, selecting the sky material that it showed me. And then over here, I can adjust this to change the look of my sky if I wanted. But I'm going to undo that because I don't want to keep that. But that's how you can find your sky and change the lighting of your sky. Now, we'll go ahead and close that under Window. Again, that's the rendering, lighting, and then environment. Under Window, we have other things as well. We have TextMesh Pro. We have the Unity Asset Store, which will take you to the Unity Asset Store online. The Package Manager is for importing things from the Unity Asset Store. So if I click My Assets, it'll pull in a list of my assets for my account on the Unity Asset Store, and then I can import them into my scene if I want. Okay, and to the right of Window, we have Help. We have essentially a lot of information in here that you can go through and figure out problems. This is good for if you have issues that you're running into. You can look it up right here, or look it up on YouTube, or ask ChatGPT. All the above work. Now below our main menus, we have our account right here that's connected. So if you need to connect your account or something, it's right here. Your cloud save, I don't tend to cloud save, but you can if you want. And then your version control, I don't tend to use that either. I just stick with the same version that I am working with. Now here we have our hierarchy. Again, I went into the game persistent music. You don't want to move this into an object. You want to leave this on the top, or else it'll give you an error down here in the console. Below that, we have our main assets. Our main assets is created, all of these drop downs are created just by going to empty, creating an asset, and then you can name it. It's an empty asset, name it, right? And then you right click on it, you can create an object in it, or you can create an object outside of it, and then we can put that into it, and now I can close this down and hide them, or clean up the hierarchy and organize everything. And you can move these together out here as well. But I'm going to go ahead and select this and go delete with right click, or you could hit delete on the keyboard. Now the main assets section, I tend to organize it like this because whatever's in my main assets, I'm going to keep in there, like it's going to be in every scene. So I have my game asset don't delete, which is anything I don't want to delete, like don't ever delete this type of thing. I put in here, event systems in here right now. Then we have our UI. Our UI is very important, so I put this in here. It's your UI is like right in your face, so you want to make sure that that stuff's taken care of. Your player is in here, also very important. That's how you see and interact with the world. Lighting, very important. That's how the things look in the world. And game audio is how you hear things in the world. So you can put this here, or you can put it in world assets or gameplay assets, but I tend to put it in this section. This is just how I do it. You can do it your own way. In world assets, I tend to put things that are visual or not gameplay related or not coding related. There might be some coding on things, but it's mostly about visuals and creating the art of the world. And then below that, we have our gameplay assets. Gameplay assets are how you make the game work. So like things that you can interact with, things that are the function of the game. And that's just how I like to organize things. Now to the right of the hierarchy, we have our viewport or the scene. This is where we can maneuver and look at our world and move things around, duplicate things, etc. This is essentially where you build out your scenes, but it's also the same stuff that's over here is in here, and the same stuff that's here is in here. So these are the same thing, just one's list form and one is 3D space form. And then to the right of scene, we have game. When you click play, it'll let you play test, and it'll jump over to the game tab. If for some reason this closes, again, it's in window, panels, I think where's general, one of these. One of these has it. I'm not going to, oh, right here, game. So in case you happen to lose it, but this is where you can play test your game, move around, look at things, and that's where that goes, right? Now, to the right of the viewport or the scene or game, you have the inspector. Now the inspector is important because that's where all the settings for objects are. Right now there's nothing here. If I select this, the settings of this object appear right here. I can add more settings down here and add further control of things, but you'll notice if I adjust the x-axis, I move in the x-axis with this object. If I adjust the y, same thing. And rotation's the same thing, and scale is the same thing. So you can adjust this, and that should give you an idea that all these settings interact with this object. Now, different objects have, you guessed it, different settings. So if I went in here and made a point light, for instance, and then I turned up the intensity, you would see that this object has a lot less settings. This is a light as it comes when you first add it to the world. So just understand that different objects have different settings. Each object has its own set of settings, and that's how you should approach objects when you're messing with them. And then what else? We got our project folder down here on the bottom left. The project folder is important because it stores all of your assets. So the actual assets and files that are in your game are in this project folder. So be careful when you're deleting stuff in here. We have our master game asset. That's the asset that I created and am giving to you, and people can use it for game devs or whatever, game jams. But the point of the asset is just to be a quick starting place to get in and up and running and going and making something. Now, TextMesh Pro, same thing. This is an asset. This comes from Unity. It's not my asset. It comes with Unity, but you can essentially leave this alone. You might make a TextMesh Pro out here. So if you were to go in here, and I think under, where is it at? Yeah, UI TextMesh Pro right here. I think there's another spot too. And then the WebGL build, this is just a thing that got added into this project because this version of Unity has an issue with expanding to full screen in WebGL, so we added this in here to fix that issue. It uses the minimal way of exporting, and then you're able to full screen with this. The packages folder right here comes with Unity. You just leave this stuff alone. It's the back end. It populates into every Unity project file that there is. The console, this is where you can play test and see errors pop up, figure out bugs. It'll kick back errors for you, and that's important for playtesting. And that's pretty much the Unity editor. Again, if you destroy something in here, like if you lose something in Windows, you can usually get it back right here. If you delete stuff over here, just reload your scene or exit out and then don't save and then reload it so that you can then mess with it again. Basically, the way you want to edit things inside of Unity is you want to try to manipulate things, create what you want out of it, and then if you don't like what you did, you can just undo it, and if you can't undo anymore, you would just exit out and then reload your scene. But when you like what you've done and when you want to save it, you would just go File, Save, and File, Save Project. So that's the Unity editor, and that's pretty much, oh, actually, I almost forgot a little bit more interesting stuff here. We have our lights that we can turn off in our scene right here. If you happen to turn off your lights everywhere, it's right here. And you can also turn off your icons for things right here if you turn this off, which you got to pay attention to that in case you happen to do that by accident. And then there's one other important thing in here, your camera setting. If you adjust this clipping plane and you lower it down to let's lower it to 50 or 5. See the clipping plane right here? It breaks because it's essentially clipping through it's cutting off anything past this point. So you want to make sure this is set far enough and this is set close enough that you don't have clipping problems, essentially, is what you're trying to prevent. And then I think this was set to 10,000, which is crazy high. I think 4,400 or 420 is good. It really depends on, it's somewhere in here is my favorite area. 365 is another one I like to do. I like to do numbers I remember, but basically within this area is a good distance because you're kind of judging distance on how far you can see. So yeah, that's how you go about creating or finding and using Unity. And next we'll be covering more advanced topics like moving and manipulating objects and things like that. But that's the Unity editor. Hope you enjoyed the video.